Hello, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Scottie Richardson of Wrestler Weekly. Thanks for joining me this week. It's 1979. And before we get started, remember this. Did you watch last week's show? Did you comment on last week's show? Well, Bobby Norton did. And Bobby Norton is going to receive this 8x10 autographed, signed by Tommy Wildfire Rich, Austin Idol, the Universal Heartthrob, and Mr. USA Tony Atlas. So thank you, Bobby, for watching our show and commenting, and hopefully you will enjoy this as much as I do. 1979, the year of Magic Bird, the year of We Are Family, the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it's also a very special year. This year of 1979 is the year that yours truly got his first wrestling magazine. And here it is. This is a special magazine for so many reasons. For me, September of 1979, The Wrestler, Ricky Steamboat, signed, as you can see on there. Now here's the deal, here's the story. So, young kid, always went to the grocery store with my mom. So we're in the grocery store, and where would I like to go? To the magazine section. So I'm reading the magazines, and I'm trying to see if maybe I can get one. And I grew up, and we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, and so I remember walking up, and I walked up to, back then, you know, you could just let your kids just run around the store. So, 1979, I'm running around the store. I got a younger brother, as you know, Reggie. So, we're walking around, and so I come up, and I've got this mag. And my mom's standing in line. She's got the cart, and I'm like, can I have this wrestling magazine? She looked at it, and she said, sure. And, what's funny is, I also looked over to the side, and there was a Waylon Jennings vinyl record album. It had the theme song of Dukes of Hazzard, and so I asked for that as well. But this is the deal. And do you see anything? You see any inspiration? Look at Wrestler Weekly. Look at Ricky Steamboat. Similar, very similar. But that was the inspiration. My first magazine, and this has always been a love of mine. It's a great read, too. So if you pick this up, this is a great one. All right, let's go on to the next one. This one is a good one here. September 79 also, but the Wrestling 1979 yearbook. I always love magazines where they have belts. This is the MidAtlantic Championship. And short story on this one, Reggie, my brother, always had this magazine. And so we went to this Fan Fest in Charlotte, and the NWA Fan Fest a few years back. And Greg Valentine was not scheduled on the original schedule. And so we're walking in, and the day I had actually picked up a bunch of magazines. I had bought a few magazines at the event, and this is actually one that I had picked up. And then we walk out into the lobby, and Greg Valentine is sitting in the lobby. So it was just great to buy this magazine that my brother had always had growing up, and then to get Greg to sign it. So that was a very special day that day. All right, moving on. April 1979, again, The Wrestler. This is a good one because it's got two belts. This one's signed by Bruno Sammartino. It's got the red leather WWF title as well as the blue. And I like this one because not only is it signed by Bruno, but it is not signed by Bob Backlund, which means there's an opportunity to get another mag signed down the road. So, but I do have Bob on this next one, which is November of 1979. This is Bob Backlund with the world title signed. I don't have the apartment girls' signatures anywhere, so maybe that's the next venture. I'm going to go around and see if I can get some apartment girls to sign the mags, because I doubt anyone's ever done that. So next, I've got a little theme here. So when you watch the episode, as you're watching, you're going to see a little thread that I'm threading here. So there's Bob Backlund. See, here was Bob Backlund. Bruno Sammartino signed. Here's Bob Backlund signed. Now, Bob Backlund is on this one, but signed by Nick Bockwinkel. Always love my Nick Bockwinkel signatures. Obviously, Nick is passed, and what a legend. What an absolute legend. In the ring, on the mic. Had a great conversation with Tommy Wildfire Rich the other day. We sat down, we were in his living room, and I just looked over at him and I said, Tommy, tell me about Nick Bockwinkel. Tell me about wrestling Nick. And Tommy just had nothing but praise for Nick Bockwinkel, and what a great wrestler. All right, moving on, we've got spring of 1979. And you talk about legends. Dusty Rhodes signed this one, and this is back in the late 70s when he had the robe, and there's the hat, but what a legend. American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Not only signed by Dusty, again, no apartment, sorry guys, no apartment girl signatures. Moving on here, now you saw, we're going to keep the thread going here, right? So there's Nick Bockwinkel, signed. Dusty, signed. How about if we put them both on a mag? Dusty Rhodes and Nick Bockwinkel. And look at this. Dusty, that's the great thing about back in the day with Dusty, and I really like the same kind of similar to what Cody's doing now, but Dusty would go anywhere. I mean, he'd take on Harley Race, and then he'd take on superstar Billy Graham and Bob Backlund. He'd take on Nick Bockwinkel here. So, that's what we miss about professional wrestling today. And so what an awesome. And again, this one is March of 79. The wrestler, lot of the wrestlers this week. All right. Next one. Now remember, that was Dusty. Hopefully you can see that with the lighting. There's Dusty again and Nick Bockwinkel. So now here's a Dusty combined with Ricky Steamboat. Man, when I was a kid, I grew up in small town, Southwest Virginia, Marion, Chilhowie area. Lived in Marion. MidAtlantic Championship Wrestling was what we had on every Saturday morning, 11 o'clock. And I always say, and it's going to be that's really the premise of the book that I've written, Family Bacon Wrestling. When you smelled bacon on Saturday morning, you knew two things were going to happen. The bacon was going to join and the family together, and we were going to sit together and watch Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Bob Caudle, hello wrestling fans. And that was it. Bob Caudle, Ricky Steamboat. Man, I used to jump and try to jump off the couch or off the bed and just try to hit my brother with a flying body press. I wanted to be Ricky Steamboat. Speaking of 1979, this was a big feud. This magazine is one of those that when I finally completed this magazine, it was one that Reggie said, man, that one's going straight to the wall. That one's going straight in the frame. That one is going in a high place of honor. Inside Wrestling, August of 79, signed by the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who actually he signed Woo, and Ricky Steamboat. What a feud. I got to watch him as a young kid at a high school football field. I was just lucky to have that opportunity to see them in the late 70s, and what a rivalry that these guys had. All right, now we're getting down to two left. Let's give you kind of a countdown here. There's 2 left. And probably, if I had to put together, now this would be very tough, but if I had to put together a top 5 all-time wrestling magazine signed, I would probably have to put well, obviously the last one is definitely in there. Save the best for last, but this is October of '79. My favorite belt, one of my favorite wrestlers, Ricky Steamboat, with the United States title. I mean, this is, we could just stop the show right now. I mean, this, how do you beat this mag? Well, I think I've got one that comes close. It's just a little bit ahead of this one, but this is one of my all-time favorites. All right, last but not least, November of 1979, this magazine sold out the moment they put it on. I mean, it lasted maybe a few weeks. And when you got those the back issues, when you opened the magazines, you saw the little back issues, it was always blocked out as sold out. So if you remember those back in the day and they had the little sold out, you know, you were disappointed. One, we didn't really, if you didn't know what it was at the time, you just kind of barely saw little pieces of it sticking out behind that big sold out sign. But here it is, November of '79, the best of the wrestler, Nature Boy Ric Flair, with the United States heavyweight title. Remember last week, I finished with the first monthly magazine with Ric Flair with a title. Remember he had the World Tag Team title with the Japanese magazine. So if you didn't catch that episode, go back in the archives and find it, episode 3. But this is there's such a story behind me getting this magazine, getting it signed, that here's what I'm going to do. This magazine alone, it is a whole separate bonus episode. So here's how this is going to work. Go to wrestlerweekly.com. wrestlerweekly.com. Find on the page where you can subscribe. It's free. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button. It's free. And when you do that, I can send you an email. It's that simple. And I'm going to make a bonus video, because here's the deal. And I'm going to send you the bonus video only if you subscribe to wrestlerweekly.com, which again is free. I'm going to tell you how I got this magazine, how I got this magazine signed, and how it led to, let me move this box here, to getting my favorite belt signed by Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. So do that this week. Thanks for joining me again. It's always a pleasure to have you here at Wrestler Weekly headquarters. Wrestler Weekly presents Episode 4, 1979 is in the books. Next week, we get into the 80s. 1980, next week. Don't miss it. Be there.